So people seem to like hearing about your weird ass dreams.
I don't know why.
I don't know, cause you're a wacky motherfucker. That's why. You have any new ones?
Yes, dude. I actually had a weird one last night. It was a fucking super weird dream, but I was driving somewhere. I was driving home from somewhere with my family, and it was like a blonde-haired chick cut me off, like to where it was like a movie, like she was trying to stop me or something.
That bitch.
Yeah, and it pissed me off, so I flipped her off. She started screaming at me, and I didn't pay any mind to it. We just went home, and the house that we went to wasn't my house. In the dream, it was my mother's house. But we got home, just did normal shit for like 10 minutes, and there was a knock on the door, and it was that chick. And she was real apologetic, and she had a bunch of dudes with her with a bunch of equipment, and they just like helped themselves to open like the back gate and start to set up to cut down a tree we had back there. And I was like, dude, everybody...
Do you want the tree cut down, or
No.
were they just taking it upon themselves?
They were just, she kept saying something like, this is, the only thing that she could offer to apologize for doing that. And I was like, dude, just leave my tree alone and get the fuck out of here. And she kept trying to tie me up. Those guys weren't listening to me. I was like, dude, get your shit out of here. They were ignoring me. They were just there. And I slowly started to notice that there was more and more people that were in my house. Like, she showed up with like 6 dudes, and then 5 minutes later there's like 10 dudes, and then it started to mix, like dudes and people of all ages and shit like that. And they
dudes and people.
Well, dudes and chicks, ladies, I guess, old people. They all wore white t-shirts. It was weird. And she was wearing that.
Were they also wearing khakis?
No, they were actually blue jeans. Everybody.
Bruce Springsteen style.
Exactly. They just needed a rolled up hat in their back pocket.
Yeah.
But I went inside, and as I walked around, the whole house was full of these people, and they just weren't listening to what I was saying. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna have to be physical to get these people out of here. But every time I tried to, they would like distract me for a minute. And I finally got pissed off, and I started looking for my wife, and she wasn't in the house anymore. And then slowly, my kids were gone. It was just me in this house with all these people. And I remember marching around screaming at all of them to get the fuck out of my house. And I actually looked for some weapons that I keep in my house, and they were gone. So I was like, something's not right here. And I walked into what was the kitchen, and they had like this long dinner table set up. And on the stove, they have this like huge, almost cartoonic pot, like where you like boil a fucking turkey or something, a huge pot. And it was full of water, and it was boiling. And one of these people had a baby, and they were going to put it in the pot. And I was like,
well, that's fucked up.
Yeah. And I was like, you guys are not going to kill and eat a baby here. And
come on, dude, you're harshing our vibe.
But they just, I got them to not do that. And I woke up shortly after that, but I went to start physically destroying people after I saw that's what they were going to do. And then I woke up.
Well, goddamn. I don't, that's pretty fucked up. People just secretly crowding into your house to boil a baby.
Yeah. They wouldn't leave. They wouldn't listen. They wouldn't even acknowledge me.
No, they just wanted to eat that baby.
Yeah.
And you were the only thing standing in their way.
But I did save the baby. It didn't get boiled and eaten. So I guess that's...
They just waited for you to wake up.
No kidding. That's a scary thought too. Ugh.
Yeah. And now because of your inability to stay asleep, that baby is being eaten somewhere. So, you're a dick, Mateo. You could have saved that baby, but instead you chose to woke up like the selfish prick that you are.
And stayed awake too. It was like at...
Yeah, see? You stayed, you're like, fuck you, baby.
This is too weird. I'm out of here.
Yeah. Let those fuckers eat you.
I am a dick.
Yeah. But our show tonight is not about Mateo being a dick or allowing dream people to eat dream babies. Our show is about Wizard Wars.
Dude, Mike, Wizard Wars. Sounds like it's too good to be true. Has there actually been wars between wizards?
Yeah, but it's not like Lord of the Rings style like you'd think. It's a lot of like doing weird, wacky, new agey type stuff in an effort to one up your fellow wizard.
Oh, I was like imagining like a Dio album cover.
No, I wish. It's not like that though. But you know, maybe someday. Maybe with a little more practice.
Maybe it does go on and we just don't know about it.
Maybe. Who's to say? So when we talk when I say magic, like I'm not talking like Gandalf shooting light from his fucking hands and defeating the army at Helm's Deep or battling with a Balrog or launching fireballs and lightning, or, you know, none of that stuff. No Doctor Strange firecracker kung fu. But this magic is like ritual magic and kind of, well I'll explain it when we get further into the actual battles. But it's some wacky shit, man. I really wish that I could tell you it was a battle between guys launching fireballs at each other across a field and summoning monsters, and well, kind of in a way monsters do get summoned at some point. But I guess listening to these stories, it's going to be all about your belief in magic and what people's magic abilities really amount to. Because, I mean, when you come down to it, it could just be a bunch of old guys dancing naked in the dark, pretending to curse each other.
Yeah.
You know.
Now, how old were you when you realized that there was no lightning bolt magic? There was no super powered wizard men, but I mean, people do practice magic.
Yeah, I never thought that there was real magic, like shooting lightning bolts and Melf's acid arrow and things like that. But I remember I was probably in middle school when I started reading about like Hermetic magic and like the Slavic magic, and you know, it always kind of interested me, but it was nothing that I ever really practiced or anything. I just kind of like to read about it. It was always interesting to me. And so I kind of had a familiarity with ritual magic and different schools of magic. But what I didn't realize until a lot later was that a lot of the early magic systems were based around the Catholic teachings.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I shouldn't say based around the Christian belief. They were kind of tied to the Christian belief system. Look at things like, have you ever heard of the Key of, I think it's called the Keys of Solomon?
No.
Or also known as the Goetia. It's this book that allegedly King Solomon used to bind 72 demons. But in traditionally, I guess they were jinn, but with Christianity taking over, demons was a more familiar term, so they use the demons. But it uses faith in God and the power of Christ to bind these demons. Well, I guess it wouldn't be the power of Christ; it'd be the power of God to bind these demons.
Mm-hmm.
It's still available today. You can go get it. It's kind of like the Book of Smokeless Fire that I mentioned on the Necronomicon show, but the Book of Smokeless Fire, rather than forcing the demons and binding them to do your will, it teaches you how to build like a pact with a working relationship with these demons, for lack of a better term.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than binding them to your will, you're working out a mutually beneficial deal. But in the 17 and 1800s, the magic and a lot of the magical works and grimoires, and even the practitioners of magic were tied to the Christian belief system. And there's even grimoires available. I think Saint Cyprian, but there's a few different grimoires and spell books out there from Catholic priests, bishops, and maybe even a pope. So there's a history of it being tied in with Christianity or Catholic beliefs. In fact, there was a pope who thought that there was a prophecy or something that said he was going to die on this certain day, so he hired a magician to come in and protect him, and they did a ritual that lasted all during the day he was supposed to die, and he ended up surviving, and he didn't die. But it's interesting because based on what we know of the Catholic Church, if they say that magic is a tool of the devil, but here you've got it tied to Christianity, and even like Santeria is tied to a lot of Christian saints, but it's more akin to like voodoo type things, but it's tied to Christian saints. I think in that case they're more used as a proxy. So when they're doing their devotions, it's not like they're doing devotions to some demon pagan god. It's a familiar face. It's a saint. It's mm-hmm. Mary, But going back to the 17 and 1800s with magic, there was a famous, I guess we'll call him magician. He was also an author, but his name was Eliphas Levi. But he was born Alphonse Louis Constant, and if you're gonna be magical and a mage, you gotta have a cool name.
Alphonse doesn't cut it.
No, you can't be Alphonse Louis. You're not gonna be credible. So he changed his name. As he was growing up, he was raised in a Catholic household, and he originally studied to become a priest at the seminary. But he always had an interest in the occult, and due to this interest, he ended up getting expelled from the seminary. So once he got expelled, he became more interested in studying magic, but he always seemed more interested in magical theory rather than actually practicing magic. And he ended up performing only one magical rite, but it was he was using necromancy, which is by now pretty much everybody knows what necromancy is because of video games. But necromancy is basically a way for the magician to communicate with the dead. In video games now, it's like if you're into necromancy, if you have a character that does necromancy, you could raise zombies or summon ghosts and shit like that. But in real life magic, necromancy is, and I say real life magic with quotey fingers, but it's a way for the magician to communicate with the dead. He tried to summon the ghost of the famous pagan philosopher Apollonius of Tyana, and he performed this ritual in 1854. And apparently the ritual scared him to the point where he never attempted another thing again. But he said that he saw this being in the mirror, and then it ended up in the room with him outside of the mirror, and it touched him. And he said where it touched his arm felt cold and numb. And for days afterwards, he said he felt weak and sick.
That's terrifying.
Yeah. So he never attempted again. But in his book, he wrote about this, and he actually wrote instructions for the ritual, so you can follow right along and summon your own arm-numbing ghost. So that's fun. But the reason I bring him up, he wasn't involved in a wizard war, but he's gonna come back around later. But he's also in part responsible for this upcoming wizard war. So Thank you. You gotta have dramatic effect. It's a goddamn wizard war.
Oh.
I said it's a goddamn wizard war.
It's just an amazing set of words. You have to have something like a lightning strike behind the term.
Yeah. Even though they're not shooting lightning even though they're not shooting lightning at each other, it's still it's dramatic, you know. But Levi kind of had he had a run-in with another magician, another French magician named Pierre Vintras, and Pierre claimed to be the reincarnation of the prophet Elijah from the Bible, and he claimed that his purpose of being was to prepare Earth for the second coming of Jesus Christ. So he founded this magical sect and named it Work of Mercy. Within this magical sect, he had a collection of communion hosts that were miraculously marked with blood. And for people that don't know what the communion host is, it's a flat white wafer that's given during communion at church. And if it's Catholic, the Catholic belief is that during the ceremony of communion, that the host, the communion wafer, becomes the body of Christ, so that you're literally consuming the body of Christ, and then the wine becomes the blood of Christ, and you're drinking his blood. It's
pure cannibalism.
Yeah, and it's weird because a lot of the Catholic Mass it's very based on ritual, and there's a lot of magic involved in it. You know, I don't know. They would probably assume that it's sacrilegious to call it magic, but what else would you call it? You know, it's a big magic ritual, the whole thing.
Yeah, that's something I took away from going to any religious ceremony or function growing up, or as an adult. I've had friends of different faiths invite me to their church, or, you know, for some whatever reason. But every time I went to one of those things, I walked away thinking, holy shit, that was like a magic ritual.
Yeah, it really is. And there's a lot of things involved with the symbolism and even things that are worn, that are taken from these old religions. Like the Pope's hat is what the priest of Dagon would wear, and it represented a fish, and the symbol for Christ is a fish.
Mm-hmm.
And then they've got the fucking the pine cone on the end of the Pope's staff to represent the pineal gland in your brain, which is also seen as the third eye, opening your third eye.
I remember specifically watching a documentary on all the occult like images and symbolisms and things with the Pope, and there's a lot of creepy shit. Maybe creepy is not the right
just
word.
In the Vatican itself, like they've got an obelisk with hieroglyphs on it. Like, why do they have that there?
Huh.
It's really weird. And a lot of the ritual of the Mass and the whole idea of eating your God, consuming the flesh of your God, and turning ordinary bread and wine into body and blood.
That's just so weird. I mean, thinking about it now, being older, I wonder when, you know, Jesus died, he was just like, guys, eat me. It doesn't make sense now, but just eat me when I'm dead.
Yeah. His last words were, yeah, why don't you eat me? And they took it literally. He said, eat him.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. But getting back to these miraculously bloody hosts, Levi examined a few of them, and he declared them to be devilish rather than miraculous. And he said one of them had an upside down pentagram, which is the devil's pentagram because it's got the horns pointing up. He said there was one that had the caduceus, but the snakes were reversed. And in case you don't know, the caduceus is that symbol that's like the medical symbol with the pole in the middle and the snake around it. But traditionally, there's two snakes and the snakes face in. But on the reverse caduceus, it's the snakes facing out, ready to strike with their venom.
Huh.
So this was also seen as being demonic. And then the final one had the name of Jehovah written in Hebrew letters, but it was upside down, which was a mockery of Jehovah. So he was deemed devilish, and his group was called demonic by Levi. But eventually, Vintress died, and the work of mercy was taken over by a former priest named Abi Bulan. And him taking over the group is what led to what was later known as the Battle of Bewitchment. Seriously, that's what it's called.
That sounds serious.
Yeah, it's not to be fucked around with. So just a little bit on him, on Abi Bulan. He was born in 1824, and after he took the orders and became a priest, he began overseeing a nun who was named Adele Chevalier, and she claimed that she heard supernatural voices, which were attributed to angels, and that she had this disease that was miraculously healed by the Virgin Mary. And so during the course of their relationship, it ended up becoming romantic. And so obviously nuns and priests aren't supposed to be banging. So they ended up leaving their orders, and together in 1859, they founded the Society for the Reparation of Souls. And so it sounds like a really cool place where they'd be doing good work, trying to save people. But in reality, what it was a group that was devoted to sex magic. Oh. And on one occasion, they committed ritual murder.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah. A year after they were founded, they sacrificed a baby that the former nun gave birth to. And at the high point of the ritual, they killed the baby.
That explains my dream.
Yeah. And they didn't try to boil it, though. They weren't looking to eat it. But this former priest had a pentagram tattooed on his face. And when he would do this ritual mass, he wore priest's vestments, but the crucifix was inverted, of course. But he specialized in exorcisms, and he was able to cast out evil spirits. But during his black masses, he would take communion hosts and consecrate them with feces.
Oh.
Yeah. And he said that it was a fertilizer that would contain powerful life energy.
Was it his feces, or did he have magic feces?
I don't know. I don't know what kind of poopies they were. but they were poopies.
I hope it was his poo. He was just like fucking dummies.
Yeah, he's like, here, let me just take a dump on this, and then you can mow on it. Won't you, bitch?
He just dips each wafer in a steaming pile of his poop.
Yeah. Here's a poo scoop for you, and a poo scoop for you. But he would also teach the females of his group how to hypnotize themselves into thinking that they were having sex with Jesus and other saints. And he also taught them how to have sexual intercourse with his own astral body.
Ooh.
So this guy really loved to do all of the bangs. I feel like this is further evidence of the sexual repression leading to sexual deviancy.
It sounds like it, especially since he was a former member of the church.
Yeah.
So he's gone through some suppression, all right.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think this guy was batshit. He at one point he claimed that he was the reincarnation of John the Baptist, and then he became the new leader of the Work of Mercy. So once he took over, because of his inclinations, some members of the original sect refused to accept him. But he was able to win some of the group over, and they followed him and became the new Work of Mercy. And in 1886, they were visited by Marquis Stanislaus de Guaita, and he was a morphine addict, but he also was really into the occult and magic, and he later founded the Kabbalistic Order of the Rose and Cross in Paris. But he read that Levi, the year before, was really getting into the study of magic, and he went and hung out with Levi, and then went to check out this order. And he stayed 2 weeks with the group and left completely disgusted. So you've got this morphine addict who goes to visit these guys, and he walks away being like, fuck that, they're disgusting. But the Abbe Boulon believed that humanity's path to God lay through the act of sex. So he would encourage orgies and practice sex magic, and he would even encourage that people have sex with supernatural beings. So they would perform all these ceremonies where they would summon these beings to have supernatural spirit sex or something, I guess. And he also promoted promiscuity and adultery and incest and bestiality.
Oh,
yeah. So he I mean, for him, he's basically like, whatever floats your boat, go with it, man. Bang away.
Don't let species slow you down.
Yeah. Species, orientation, willingness. Those are all just things. He's, as far as I know, he wasn't into pedophilia, though. So I guess he had some standards. But then again, he did kill his baby. So, or not his, well, maybe it was his baby. I don't know. But he killed a baby. So I don't know.
He can take him or leave him.
Yeah, I guess. He's like, I killed him. I won't bang him. Come on. What, am I, a monster? Kinda. You were banging that horse the other day.
Satan has standards.
Yeah. But, I mean, this was a huge change from where things started off with the Work of Mercy. And followers started to leave. And there was one follower named Oswald Worth who left. And he ended up teaming up with Guaita. And in May 1887, they wrote to Boulon and announced that they had judged him and condemned him. And they explained that what they meant by this was that they would show him up in public as a scoundrel. But Boulon wasn't buying into it. And he felt that by this threat, that they had intended to use black magic to kill him. So he began working to defend himself from any form of magical attack. And with this communication, the Battle of Bewitchment has begun. So it sounds a lot cooler than it actually is. It ended up being kind of silly, but for those involved at the time, they really felt like this was real, really life or death situation, and both sides felt like the other was casting evil spells against them, and they just kind of went back and forth with these magical things, and Boulon was 100% convinced that his life was in danger. And he started working all these spells with his housekeeper named Julie Thibault, who was able to communicate with spirits. And another one of his supporters, Jules Boyce, was witness to some of these. And he said that the two of them, Julie Thibault and Bulan, they had believed that Gwaita had put Bulan's portrait in a coffin to try to kill him by using imitative magic. And so then Gwaita, that is, was saying black mass against Bulan. So Bulan, learning of this, retaliated with a ceremony that he performed called Sacrifice of Glory of Melchizedek. Which sounds really badass, let's be honest. But he, the point of this was, it was a feminine rite that was allied to a masculine rite, and they used red wine and white wine, and I'm assuming probably sex, and they were able to overcome, through the belief was that through this ritual they would overcome anything that the followers of Satan would attack them with. So they thought that they were successful, but then they started hearing the people present at the ritual started hearing these thuds, and the story goes that it sounded like a fist hitting flesh. And as they were hearing these sounds, Bulan started to cry out, and lumps started appearing all over his head.
Ooh.
And then he screamed again, and he opened up his robe to reveal that he had a bleeding wound coming out of his chest.
Now this happens during a protection ceremony for him?
Yeah, he had performed the protection ceremony, and after it had concluded, he got.
Not so effective.
No. But it didn't kill him. I don't know what caused the bleeding wound on his chest, but apparently it was magic, or some magical being that was summoned to attack him. But he had a friend who was a novelist named J.K. Heisman, and he kind of dipped his toe in the occult every now and again. But he was with Bulan in 1891 in Lyons, France, and he was working with him and another clairvoyant girl, not Julie Thibault. This was a new one. And he was still convinced that Gwaita had tried to, or was still coming after him, and he felt that he tried to poison his new clairvoyant girl. So he thought that he would be able to, through magic, make it so that the poison would turn around on Gwaita. And there was no poison. But he was convinced that the magic went back, and Heisman even wrote that Gwaita ought now be in bed, and the arm he usually injects with morphine will be looking like a balloon, meaning that he was poisoned and his arm was swelling up with poison. Yeah, so it's just like it to me, it seems like a lot of hearsay going back and forth, like a lot of rumor. Like someone comes up to Bulan, he's like, you know what, I heard Gwaita is fucking casting a spell so that your butthole is gonna freeze over and you'll never be able to shit except for out of your mouth. And he's like, what? Let me do a little dance and make it so that his balls are in place of his eyes. I mean, none of that was really said. That was just my interpretation. But this Heisman guy describes how Bulan starts acting during these rituals while he's trying to protect himself. And he says he flings himself all over the place. He jumps around like a tiger cat, and he'll grab onto one of those miraculous bloody hosts and try to invoke the aid of Saint Michael. And Huysmans became convinced that he started to become targeted by Gaeta's sorcery. So either something started happening to him, or Bulan got in his head and was like, you're under magical attack now.
That's got to be pretty easy when it comes to, assuming that you're under magical attack. They can almost do anything they want, and there's, nothing major is going to happen. Like,
right.
They're not going to jump in the room and open a scroll, and then you start getting sick or growing fucking hair on your face.
Right. And it's not like they're casting spells like shooting fucking portals or sending rat monsters to eat them or anything like that. This is all just, like force of will type of stuff.
And who's to say the protection shit's not working? He's like, well, I didn't turn into a rat face.
Well, yeah. Well, my dick's still here, so my spells are working. I mean, guess it gives you peace of mind, at the very least.
Yeah.
But this Huysmans guy, he said that he started to feel the presence of an invisible force that was around him. And he said at times he would feel something cold move across his face. And at bedtime, he said he described them as fluidic fisticuffs that were aimed at him. So apparently he felt like something was trying to box him whenever he tried to go to bed. But he said his cat also started to seem jumpy and acted like it would notice things that weren't there. So because Huysmans was friends with Bulan, he went to Bulan, and Bulan gave him one of the miraculous or demonic blood hosts.
The poop chips.
And he made a paste of myrrh, incense, and cloves, and said that it would keep evil away from him if he burned it in his fireplace. And I guess the reason for that is some of these things are used as preservatives. And the old superstition was that that demons are repelled by anything that will preserve things, because they work with destroying and decaying. So if there's something that's why traditionally salt is able to keep out evil. If you make a circle around you with salt, or put salt over the entrances to your house or room or whatever.
Wow.
It's supposed to keep evil spirits out. But it's because of the preservative nature of salt.
Very interesting. I would have not have guessed that being the reason why they use salt for barriers.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess that iron has the same type of superstition linked to it as well, because it's pure iron is, way back, pure iron was like the hardest thing you could get, so you couldn't destroy it. It was more powerful than bronze. So it would break through bronze. Bronze couldn't break through iron, and because it was unbreakable, it couldn't be destroyed. That's why evil spirits and demons and fairies and everything feared it. Yeah. But anyway, Huysman was apparently being protected by Bulan, and at one point Bulan told him to stay home and not go into his office. So, under direction from Bulan, Huysman stayed home, and while he was gone, a heavy mirror that he had on the wall fell down and smashed on his desk. And if he had been sitting there, he would have been killed by this falling mirror.
Whoa.
Yeah. But the battle finally reached its climax in 1893, early on in January. Bulan ended up writing to Huysman saying that the new year was one of ill omen. And then he used some numerology mumbo jumbo and basically said that it was going to be the year of evil and the year of the devil. And that the previous night, Julie Thibault had a dream of Goita, and in the early hours, a black bird of death cried out, and it was the herald that Bulan was going to be attacked. So he got up at 3 a.m., and he felt that he was suffocating. Now, we've talked in the past about 3 a.m. being the devil's hour.
The witching hour.
Yeah. But he woke up, felt like he was suffocating, and lost consciousness. So basically he woke up, he's like, I can't breathe, and went back to sleep. And by 4 o'clock, he woke up again and believed that the danger had passed. But he was mistaken, because he died the next day on January 4th, 1893.
Whoa.
And so both Heisman and the other clairvoyant, Jules Boyce, both thought that Bulan had been killed by sorcery. But there's a little more to this. So even though Bulan was dead, Jules Boyce published the stories of these violent attacks, and was kind of, because he was blaming Goita. I feel like every time I say it, I said it a different way. But I'm not French, so I don't know. I probably every way was wrong, and I'm a big fat stinky stupid head. But Boyce was accusing him of being a black magician, so they ended up, as you do apparently, in a duel with pistols.
Ooh.
Yeah, and before the duel, both sides were casting protective spells and doing all sorts of things to help them magically in the duel. So on the way to the duel, one of the horses pulling the carriage that Boyce was in stopped in its tracks and began to shake. And then it started acting like something was spooking it, and it wouldn't leave the spot for 20 minutes. Finally, the horse went on. They got to the duel. At the duel itself, each man fired once. Neither one was shot. Afterwards, it was found that one of the bullets was stuck in the barrel of one of the pistols. So people were convinced that it was Boyce's gun, and that the bullet had been prevented by magic. And then 3 days after this duel, Boyce fought another duel with one of Goita's friends. And on the way to this duel, Boyce again had problems with the horses, and the horse drawing his carriage ended up collapsing. He took another horse, and then that horse fell and the carriage overturned.
Holy shit.
And then so Boyce arrives at the duel. He's all beaten up, he's bleeding, and challenged the guy to a sword fight. They both were in this fucking sword fight. Neither guy got injured.
Whoa. They said, fuck guns. We're stabbing each other now.
And that was the last battle. In the Battle of Bewitchment.
Well, I didn't expect it to end that way. An actual sword fight. That's cool.
Yeah, it's a much better ending than the next Wizard War.
Oh. Wizard War.
Yeah, the War of the Wizards. So you've heard the name Aleister Crowley before, or Aleister Crowley, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
So, did you know that he was involved in a Wizard War?
No, but I'm not surprised.
Oh, he was involved, Mateo. The Wizard War Part 2. Yeah. So that all that stuff in the First Wizard War was taking place in France, and really across Europe at this point, occult studies were kind of becoming a big thing. There was the Theosophical Society and the previously mentioned Work of Mercy and all that stuff. But in England, there was the Order of the Golden Dawn, and it was a respectable society. At their peak, they had about 100 members, But they had lodges in London, Paris, and Scotland. And they had a lot of famous members too. They had Yeats, the Irish author. They had Algernon Blackwood, Arthur Machen, the Royal Astronomer of Scotland. They even had old clergymen. But they were basically a well-respected order of occult practitioners. And in 1898, Crowley was in Switzerland where he met this chemist named Julian Baker. And they began to talk about their common interests in the occult and things of that nature. And Baker ended up telling Crowley that he was part of the Order of the Golden Dawn. So once they got back to London, he introduced Crowley to this guy named George Cecil Jones, who was Baker's brother-in-law. And he was also a member of the Order of the Golden Dawn. And through these two people, he ended up becoming initiated into the Outer Order of the Golden Dawn, which is a part of the Order of the Golden Dawn, but it's like for initiates, I guess. Like they're like, I guess if you were thinking like Masons, where like the lower level guys don't get to know all the cool stuff, but if you're like a level 86 super mage in the Masons, then you get to know like what Jesus's wife's name was or something. I don't know. So as he ended up getting initiated into the Golden Dawn, or what the Outer Order of the Golden Dawn, by the head of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, Samuel Liddell McGregor Mathers. That's right. He has 4 names. 3 of them are last names. So enjoy. And they performed the ceremony to initiate Crowley in, and he picked the magical name Frater
Tater.
No, Frater Tater. Frater Perdurabo. And that's apparently interpreted to mean I shall endure till the end. So, sufficiently creepy for a wizard. But as Crowley got more into the order, he ended up living with one of the senior members named Alan Bennett. Alan Bennett taught Crowley a lot about different types of magic. He taught him about ceremonial and ritual magic, as well as the use of drugs in magic. And apparently together, the two of them performed the rituals in the Goetia. So they were summoning these demons and binding them to do their will. But for what purpose, I don't know. And eventually, Alan Bennett ended up leaving the order altogether and moved to Asia to study to become a Buddhist.
Oh, that's quite a turnaround.
Yeah. But and this Bennett guy, he was raised Catholic, and apparently I don't know if the dude was a prude or if he was disgusted by the idea or what his deal was, but apparently he had lost his faith in the Christian God once he found out how childbirth, where babies come from, basically.
Maybe he just had a tiny dick and he never wanted to have to do that.
Well, he said, there's a quote that says he felt, he wondered, did the omnipotent God whom he had been taught to worship devise so revolting and degrading a method of perpetuating the species? Then this God must be a devil delighting in loathsomeness.
Wow.
So that's how repulsed he was by the idea that babies were attached to sex and where babies came from and what was necessary to create a baby.
Wow. Now, him being from this time, he's had to have seen animals give birth, right? I mean,
well, it was when he found out about childbirth that he lost his faith. It wasn't as an adult. It was as a early teenager. Yeah.
I mean, he had to figure that it's got to be something similar to when a dog has puppies.
Yeah.
The stork's not real? Fuck this.
Yeah. The thing with Crowley was before he really got into magic, he was actually a student at Cambridge, and it was believed that during his time at Cambridge, he traveled to St. Petersburg under the pretense that he was trying to learn Russian, and it's thought that he may have been working with the British Secret Service and was on an intelligence agent and was on a mission when he went to Russia. So this will come up later, but I just wanted to make that known because I forgot to mention that earlier. But he was, in his time with the Golden Order, he was kind of involved in 2 wizard wars.
Two separate wizard wars?
One kind of tied into the other. So the first one was with this Samuel Liddell McGregor Mathers guy on his side. As Crowley was coming up through the order, he was ready to enter into the inner second order. So, as I mentioned, he was in the outer order of the Golden Dawn, and he was preparing to enter into the inner order. But a lot of the people within the group didn't like him, and he started to kind of develop a bad reputation. He was bisexual, and he was very open sexually, and he would constantly have orgies and sex with multiple different people, and he was just kind of a carefree, sexually liberated individual, and a lot of people in the order didn't like that, including Yates. So when the time came, the London Lodge of the Golden Dawn's group refused to allow Crowley into the Second Order. So rather than take no for an answer, he's like, you know what, fuck you guys, I'm going to go over your head. So he went to Paris and met up with Mathers, and Mathers personally did the ceremony to allow Crowley into the inner Second Order.
Oh, it worked, huh?
Yeah. So in doing this, he created this schism within the order, and a lot of people were pissed off that Mathers did this, and they kind of started to shun Mathers and anyone who was with him. So Mathers began to use Crowley to battle against these other Golden Dawn magicians. And the mission that he sent Crowley on was to seize the vault of the Adepts. Now, really, the Vault of the Adepts was just a cool name for the place where they did their rituals. It was their temple area. But the members of the lodge that kind of ousted Mathers and Crowley had the rights to it. So this part of the Wizard War ends in a dramatic
circle jerk.
No, court hearing.
Oh, really?
Yep. So they ended up going to court, and the judge ruled in favor of the magicians that ousted Mathers and Crowley. And the reason was they were paying to rent the space. So that left both of the Crowley and Mathers isolated from them. But it's thought that this whole thing may have been part of an intelligence operation that Crowley was on to remove Mathers from authority. And this brings in the Second Wizard War. So, he attempted to seize leadership away from Mathers. And so keep in mind, Mathers was still in the order in Paris. It was just London that he was given the cold shoulder. But he was still in Paris. So Crowley tries to take control
Of the order in France?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Ambitious guy.
Well, he's like, I already got you ousted from England. Now let me oust you from France. And a lot of the people in the order, even in France, complained that Mathers was basically a pretentious fuck. And he was apparently directed from the Temple of the Holy Spirit. And he was claiming that the Holy Spirit spoke directly to him. So at this point, the society ended up breaking up completely due to the proclamations of Mathers, and they were sick of his shit, basically. So they kind of broke up. Then they later revived and came back together under the leadership of this guy named A.E. Waite. During this falling out between Crowley and Mathers, they ended up, like I said, in the Second Wizard War. The Second Wizard War! And Mathers became, he got really pissed off because Crowley betrayed him and tried to take control. So what do you do when you're the head of a magical order and someone that you had helped out tries to stab you in the back? What would you do, Mateo?
I think it's time to start summoning shit.
Well, funny you say that, because Mathers summoned a fucking vampire.
Whoa.
Yeah, he wasn't fucking around. He summoned a goddamn vampire and he sent it to attack Crowley. But Crowley was prepared and knew the proper spells to defeat vampires. And he used the evil within the vampire to kill her off.
Ooh.
So he turned her own evil back on her and she died. So Mathers, pissed off that his vampire didn't succeed, used a spell that killed all of Crowley's bloodhounds at the same time. They all just died.
Whoa.
And then he drove Crowley's servant insane and convinced her to try to kill Crowley's wife. And she had to end up being overpowered, and they ended up getting her under control. So at this point, Crowley's like, I need to retaliate. So what do you think Crowley did?
God, did he dip some crackers in poo-poo?
No, he's above that. So Crowley's like, I'm done fucking around. I'm not gonna kill your pets. I'm not going to make your servants try to kill your wife. I'm gonna summon motherfucking Beelzebub and 49 of his attendant devils.
Oh, time for the big guns.
Yeah. So he sent them off to curse this Mathers dude. So Mathers ended up dying in 1918. And the manner of his death is still unknown. His death certificate lists no cause of death.
Huh.
But it's thought at this point that he probably died of Spanish influenza.
Not a demon beating.
No, not being raped by Beelzebub and his 49 devils, but the Spanish flu. So really all of these wizard battles basically end in a wet fart. Nothing cool. Nothing, like, it just seems ridiculous. It was probably all just fancies, just fantasies and delusions.
I really wish it was like some type of Final Fantasy battle.
I know. Like, why couldn't Mathers have died like Alhazred died? Like, just mysterious bites being taken out of him.
That would be way cooler. In the middle of
town square. Yeah. No, he fucking died of Spanish influenza.
Shit yourself to death.
Yeah. Yeah. And the most feared wizard in the world. Well, I shouldn't say in the world, but the one that's feared by like the Catholics and the Christians, Aleister Crowley, had one of his settled in court. Dun dun dun. Yeah, pretty magical, guys. Pretty magical. But that being said, there are spells to sway judges, so they were probably casting spells on the judge. And like when you're dealing with magicians, like everything is having spells casted at it. They're casting spells at each other to fuck up in court, casting spells on their lawyers to make their lawyers super awesome and badass, casting spells on the judge to make him rule in their favor, casting spells on the jury to make them see in their favor, casting spells on the bailiff so he doesn't beat their ass if they get out of line. All sorts of shit.
It always seems like magic spells, like we hear about, the typical love spell or even a protection spell or something like that.
Yeah.
But when we have these examples of a straight up battle, they're very indirect. Like, why kill dudes' dogs?
Because fuck you, that's why. I can kill your dog, motherfucker.
If he has the ability to...
Maybe he doesn't have the ability to kill a human.
That could be.
Maybe he's just like, you know what? I'm just going to kill a bunch of his dogs. Fuck it. Or maybe he just poisoned his dogs and Crowley believed that it was magic.
That could be the case.
Because he's dealing with a wizard. And they are at war. You guys sick of that yet?
I'm sick of trying to stay on top of it.
Yeah. They can't all be zingers.
Well, even though it wasn't some cool Gandalf-like battle, it's still very interesting to hear about these, famous people who supposedly practice magic actually getting into some type of duels.
Yeah. Yeah. That Boy Sky, man, that Boy Sky liked to duel, and he never got injured during the duels. Guns, swords, he's like, fuck it, I don't care. My horses can die, I don't give a shit. I'm coming to fight.
For my right to magic.
Yeah. I think the real moral of the story is that Jules Boyce is a badass. And everyone else just eats shitty fucking wafers.
Thank you for listening to the Whatcast. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, iTunes, and YouTube. Enjoy the podcast. Get yourself a Whatcast t-shirt or a sticker pack. Who was that dude on that one episode? Try the links in Homie's page. All this and more can be found at www.thewhatcasters.com. Thanks again for listening and have a great week.